The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a massive success and completely changed the movie industry. Now they're trying to do the same with Netflix. To learn more, here is 10 things Marvel Netflix shows should learn from Marvel movies. Before you watch, blast that subscribe button, you'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of new content. And can you guess which movie is represented by these emoji? Stay tuned at the end to find out.
I got him!
The Marvel Timeline. One of the more entertaining parts of following MCU is the ability to follow a stable, continuous storyline through the films. Something which happens in one film can connect to another. It can also directly impact how the characters act and react. While MCU stays pretty close to perfect with their timeline, the breakdown for the Netflix originals is not as solid. Within the shows themselves, it's hard to tell how they take place with each other, and if there's a chance for the characters to have a random encounter. It's hard to exactly pinpoint where the Netflix characters intersect with the MCU. A few mentions or even some Easter eggs can help make the shows feel like they're part of the Marvel canon. This will help prevent them from feeling like a lost cousin. The shows do have a chance to tidy things up with the 8-episode special series known as The Defenders. The show will feature Daredevil, Jessica Jones, the Iron Fist, and Luke Cage, all within the same storyline. It can help keep the show up to date and truly connect it to the events seen in films like The Avengers or Captain America: Civil War. The fight scenes. When Daredevil first premiered on Netflix, it showcased a lot of potential for how the budget and action would work on the small screen. Then it only got worse from there. There's no comparison to the MCU when it comes to fight scenes. The Hulk taking on the Hulkbuster, Ant-Man battling Yellow Jacket, the whole airport scene in Captain America: Civil War. All of these fights are superhero classics. Sadly, we don't get the same caliber in the Netflix shows. There's only so many times we can see one of the Netflix heroes taking out a random group of thugs. It's happened on all of the shows and has become extremely repetitive. One of the worst examples comes from the Iron Fist. The fight scenes are uninspired, and Finn Jones doesn't seem to have the training or experience to convincingly pull them off. MCU actors spend months preparing for their fight scenes, but some of the Iron Fist scenes look cheaply made and incredibly rushed. Hopefully, The Defenders gives the heroes a chance to really shine and showcase some of their heroic skills. Maybe they'll have some true enemies to do battle with.
I'm fine.
I'm not. I have to sleep. So do you.
Yeah, you're right.
Pacing out stories. When Marvel makes a movie, there is a limited amount of time available to flesh out a story, showcase key scenes, and truly introduce a superhero to audiences. For the Netflix shows, they are set at 13 episodes each season, giving them more time to flesh out the details. Unfortunately, the filmmakers have taken too much time to showcase origin stories and don't get to the actual action. One of the worst examples of this comes from the series Luke Cage. Through a series of flashbacks, we learn how Luke Cage got his powers and achieved unbreakable skin. For some reason, it took almost 240 minutes worth of content to reach that point. It created a lot of exposition and little hero action. One of the best examples of efficient story pacing comes from Guardians of the Galaxy. The movie has a runtime of just over 2 hours. During this time, they're able to introduce us to Star-Lord, Groot, Rocket Raccoon, Gamora, and Drax. It was paced excellently and gave us all the information we needed to know to root for our heroes. More of this same type of pacing should be applied to the Netflix shows, especially when introducing any more new heroes or villains.
We can still make it out of here.
Superhero costumes. One of the main differences between the MCU and Netflix franchises is the grounded and gritty look presented on the show. While these designs work well for episodic television, the heroes are really lacking the costumes and designs which make them feel so super. In the first season of Daredevil, Matt Murdock wore a ninja outfit before he wore the signature Daredevil costume. Once he was in the costume, it still wasn't as impressive as when Ben Affleck played the hero back in 2003. Luke Cage played homage to the classic yellow costume he wore in the comic books, but he mainly wears street clothes and doesn't really stand out. The Iron Fist has an iconic look in the comics, but it's nowhere to be found in the series. There are some training outfits, but nothing like his actual costume. This may tie in with the same pacing issue, but these heroes don't feel so heroic when compared to the MCU. Captain America has his signature red, white, and blue. Iron Man has a whole collection of suits. Thor actually looks like a god of thunder. It's about time the Netflix shows start boring the MCU costume designers.
I was sick and tired of the Knicks losing all the time, man.
The transformation of Luke Cage. In the Netflix shows, it's always entertaining to see other characters pop up on shows and create the feeling of a fun crossover. The first time we were introduced to Luke Cage was on the show Jessica Jones. On the show, he was hard-edged, tough, and didn't play games with anyone. The introduction to Luke Cage was everything fans were looking for. Then the series got released and we met a completely different Luke Cage. The hero was more friendly, worked at a barber shop, and often plastered a smile on his face. This was a far cry from the man we met just months prior. The main character changes can be really confusing to viewers and something they don't experience in the MCU. When Captain America goes from his own franchise to a crossover movie like The Avengers, he remains the same. His ideals are the same, the mannerisms are the same, and the dialogue is comparable. The same can be said for any other hero like Thor, Iron Man, and the Black Widow. Characters may evolve and change as they grow, but the transformation of Luke Cage felt like a whole new character from the one which appeared on Jessica Jones.
So help me out. I need
Planting seeds for the future. In the MCU, it's always fun to see small scenes and subplots that hint at future films. During the early phases of the MCU, Nick Fury was often popping up to talk about the Avengers Initiative. In more recent films, the Infinity Stones have played a key part in story development and small scenes. These scenes are typically quick, blend well with the current story, and help connect all of the films together. On Jessica Jones, the seed planting was taken a little too far. On the show, we were introduced to the character of Will Simpson. Will was used a lot on the show and developed a toxic relationship with Jessica's best friend, Trish. The only problem? It was obvious from the beginning that Will was bad news and would eventually transform into the evil villain known as Nuke. The story got dragged out through the whole season, with small hints, big hints, and obvious signs of what was to come. By the end of season 1, he wasn't even fully transformed yet, but it's clearly what will happen in season 2. The story should have been toned down a little bit, unless Nuke was going to be introduced in the first season.
You can't fix me. I'm unbreakable.
Creating relationships and love stories. Even with all the action featured in the MCU, the storytellers know how to also craft a good love story. The saga of Tony Stark and Pepper Potts featured a lot of great and dramatic moments. Thor had an epic love story with Jane Foster that spanned multiple movies. Captain America also has a nice little romantic story with Sharon Carter in the Captain America sequels. These stories add a lot of emotion to the MCU and help you connect with the heroes a little bit more. This is one of the main elements that is lacking in the Marvel Netflix shows. On the second season of Daredevil, fans were introduced to Elektra. Not only would she create another hero to add to the mix, but she was a great love interest for Daredevil to have scenes with. Sadly, the story wasn't developed enough and Elektra was suddenly killed off before anything could truly happen. If you thought Elektra and Daredevil was bad, the love story in the Iron Fist was even worse. The Iron Fist and Wing have good chemistry on the screen, but he treats her like a fool, is extremely arrogant around her, and we're expected to believe she just magically fell in love with him because his fist is super strong? Pfft.
I swear. Come on, let's get to work. Yeah, I can get out of this heat.
Making the heroes likable. One of the most likable heroes in the MCU is Tony Stark. Sure, he's rich and arrogant, but he has an amazing sense of humor, loves to save the world, and is highly intelligent. When looking at the Iron Fist, he's also rich, smart, and has great combat skills, but he's not on the same level as Tony Stark. Something is missing from the character, and viewers don't have the same admiration for him as they do for Stark. It could be the actor or even the writing, but if you do not like the hero, then you cannot get emotionally invested in the story. Luckily for the Netflix shows, this problem only really occurs for the Iron Fist. Matt Murdock was instantly likable, as were Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and even the Punisher. A character can have flaws, and should, but they also need to have a quality that makes them resonate with viewers. Some major tweaks should be made to the Iron Fist as they approach Season 2. Make him more down to earth, give him a little bit better dialogue, and take a few tips from Tony Stark himself to really make the character shine.
I shall meet my foe and destroy him. You called Ronan?
Other dimensions. One of the more entertaining parts of Marvel films is the ability for heroes to enter battles through all different dimensions. There's the realms seen in Thor, different planets on Guardians of the Galaxy, and a plethora of crazy worlds found in Doctor Strange. The Marvel Netflix shows had the perfect opportunity to showcase another dimension with the development of the Iron Fist. One of the key elements featured with the hero is the alternate dimensions known as Kunlun. The Kunlun is essential for the Iron Fist training and development, but it is merely mentioned in dialogue. After a whole season of building it up, Danny Rand arrived at the cave only to find it has disappeared. What a huge letdown. The Kunlun should have featured in the very first episode. It could have showcased a lot about the character and left a lot of exposition on the cutting room floor. After Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage all took place in New York City, it would have been really refreshing to see Kunlun on the small screen. It could have had a lot of similarities when compared to Marvel films like Doctor Strange and Thor: The Dark World.
At what cost, Cornell?
When you find out, you'll tell me.
Repeating storylines. When watching multiple Marvel Netflix series, it may feel like you see the same thing over and over again. Well, in many cases, you are. For each of the 4 series, we're introduced to an antagonist early on, they're killed off halfway through the series, and then a second villain is set up for the back half of the episodes. It becomes extremely predictable, boring, and takes away a lot of the surprise elements. The MCU has a lot of movie content already, but much of it feels fresh. For example, Ant-Man was created with the blueprint of a stealth movie. This helps it stand out from several other Marvel counterparts. The Avengers is vastly different than the Avengers Age of Ultron, presenting fresh ideas with the same group of heroes. Another odd, repetitive storyline on the Netflix shows is the killing off of an elderly mentor. In Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, there's an elderly man who plays a pivotal role in the heroes' lives. It becomes a cheap way to make an emotional connection and set up some type of vengeance for the heroes. Keeping things as original as possible will help the shows feel fresh. Wow, there you have it! What changes should be made the most in these series? Is there anything we missed? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Screen Rant on YouTube so you can stay up to date with our awesome videos. The answer to our emoji quiz is